All right, everyone, welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. It's Brian Hines back as always with Alex Barth. And Barth, we've been waiting 2 days after their first initial wave of free agency for them to make a signing for us to get on here and talk about. And then literally right when we're about to go live, they make their next signing. So that's why we're a little bit late here. But the Patriots have made a signing. They introduced some of those guys from the first wave of free agency today down at Gillette Stadium. We were both there. We're going to talk about that. And then some other roster moves dominating the day and the storylines today. And we'll get into all of it. But we will start with the news that just came in, and that's the Patriots are adding edge rusher Chaisson to a 1-year, $5 million deal, former first rounder by Doug Marrone, Patriots offensive line coach in Jacksonville. He's been with the Las Vegas Raiders. So, they've added Harold Landry, they've added Milton Williams, some bigger names to this defensive line. Now they add, a former or more of an edge speed rusher, right? They still felt like they needed that to kind of round out this group, and you're probably not done there, but you add a guy in Chaisson who brings more of just some pass rushing juice there to that defensive line group. So again, 1 year, $5 million. Just literally, what are your initial thoughts on that deal?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of covered it. A guy with pass rush upside obviously didn't justify that first round pick in Jacksonville, as most players didn't during that, early 2020s tenure there with that organization, but went to Las Vegas last year, kind of picked up some momentum. This is not a guy that's going to play full time. This is not a guy that is going to be like a starter, but I think he's going to be kind of what they wanted Josh Uche to be last year and maybe earlier in his career as well. You can put him on the field third downs and tell him to pin his ears back and go. And that's what he's going to do. And that is one thing he does well, is get to the quarterback. He's not a guy you're going to task a ton with, stopping the run or playing in coverage or anything like that. But they needed a little more athleticism in that pass rush between obviously the defensive tackles and then Anthony Jennings and Harold Landry. It's more of this like stout, physical, bully, kind of brute force sort of rushers. They needed a speed guy, and now they have one in Chaisson.
Yep. So we literally were just pulling up some of his stats last year, like 29. He only played 349 pass rush snaps. So again, that limited, probably more of a third down role. 29 pressures. He had 12.8% pass rush win rate, which was 41st among qualified rushers. He was right ahead of Keon White and Max Crosby. So do with that information what you want to do. But more of that speedy, bursty rusher off the edge. Hopefully he gives you some juice there to complement that group in there. So that's your latest signing. Again, they've been pretty much quiet since that first initial wave on Monday. They did re-sign Jalen Hawkins last night to another low-level 1-year deal. So you bring Jalen Hawkins back into the fold. And that's been it, right? No other additions since we've last been on here.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we'll get to some of the players that are on their way out, but
yeah,
yes.
So let's do that. Let's talk about some of the guys on their way out. The big one today, or really the last 24 hours, they've lost 3 real leaders, some captains, some Super Bowl champions. But the big one this morning was David Andrews, center. Kind of a surprise to some people. He had that surgery last year with the hopes of coming back and wanting to play this year. Now, he really wasn't sure how that was going to look when he got on the field. He made that pretty clear. His future would be decided if he gets on the football field even in the first place. But they released him today. And whether that is kind of like this Julian Edelman thing where they're going to release him and then ultimately he's just going to end up retiring, we'll wait and see. But they did release David Andrews. So a spectacular Patriot career comes to an end there as they officially released David Andrews today.
Yeah. Before we get into the football of it all, obviously you got to replace the football player, but you also have to replace the person. This is a guy that embodied everything that was right with the winning culture in New England. Obviously that predated him. And then starting in 2015 on, a guy that came back from blood clots, a serious medical issue in 2019 to play. Keep in mind, he lost the season due to a serious medical issue that a lot of guys don't come back from. Not only did he come back from it, he came back during the pandemic year, when many people figured once they announced that opt-out policy that he'd be the first one opting out. And, some people thought that might be it, 2 years out of the game, but came back 8-time captain, 2-time Super Bowl champion, fixture in the community, fixture in the locker room, all of that. We're tremendously lucky to get to watch him as Patriots fans, for those who cover him, to get to cover him. So definitely leaves a hole. Football wise, you mentioned the Edelman thing. I think that's interesting. Why make this move? Why not bring him into camp and see where he's at? If I had to guess, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily right, but this is just the harsh business that is the NFL. Let's say you bring him into camp and you go through the spring and the summer. You're not really going to be able to tell whether or not he's good to go coming off that surgery till you actually start playing games. It's the nature of the offensive line position. But he's David Andrews. If he's out there, he's going to be out there. You're not like sitting him. So he's out there in the spring and the summer as your lead center. Now you get to September and suddenly, oh, he doesn't have it anymore. Well, now whoever plan B is, whether it's Ben Brown, whether it's Cole Strange, whether it's somebody else, they aren't as prepared as they could be. And that's kind of what happened with Edelman, where at the beginning of that 2020 season, when we still weren't sure where his knee was at, those are reps that could have gone to a guy like Jacoby Myers, right? And they didn't, and Myers kind of had to play catch up. So I wonder if they just looked at this and said, we can't afford an unknown at center. We want to know that the guy we're going into spring practices with is going to be the guy week 1, is going to be the guy week 10, is going to be the guy week 18. And, is it fair that Andrews didn't get a chance to prove that he can still do it here? No, it's not. But that's the National Football League. It's cold business sometimes. And I think this was the nasty side of the business really on display in David Andrews getting released. Doesn't mean that he did anything wrong. If he's upset, he has a right to be upset. Hopefully they, can come to good terms. Mike Reese reported that if he does end up retiring, the team will honor him as they should, but it's a tough one. It's one of the tough realities of sports.
Yeah. I do wonder if they look back, the last year plus, like last 2 years, there have been some signs of maybe him slowing down a little bit, especially in pass protection and that part of the game. So I wonder if they are looking at that and saying, okay, like, do we want to go through the spring and summer with him still being a question mark? And you're right, give those snaps to other players as now, coming off the injury, is the play level going to be there or not? But you nailed everything with him. Like a true Patriot should be a Hall of Famer, red jacket one day, like excellent in the community, excellent with us. He was always the first one at the podium, win or lose, just the definition of a class guy and a true Patriot. So they are going to miss him. That was another kind of a weird thing about this. Like, you are getting all these culture guys in, you're trying to reset the culture. Like, no matter what your culture is, David Andrews is someone you want in your locker room. So they definitely are going to miss him. But mentioning the football part of it, who are you looking at now, maybe at the center position? Zach asked, are there anyone in free agency or the draft? The big free agent one that everyone's talking about here, and Bones points this out, is Garrett Bradbury, who's getting released from Minnesota. I'm set with him. He's going to be 30 years old soon. He gave up the most pressures among any center in football last year, and we just watched the Vikings go pay a 32-year-old to replace him. So I'm probably good with Garrett Bradbury, but there are a few veterans out there who have ties to, Doug Marrone and Josh McDaniels. If you look at the draft, we could just keep the Georgia pipeline going, and, Jared Wilson is one of the best centers available. There's a BC center who, obviously has ties maybe late in the draft, but anyone you're looking at, or are you just team Cole Strange, team Ben Brown, team Jake Andrews in this equation? But where do you see, from a football side of things, them going with this center spot?
I got to pull up my list here. I don't hate the idea of Ben Brown being in the mix. I really don't. I don't know that I'm giving him the job outright, but I thought he was solid last year. He's going to have a full year, right, to get ready, instead of coming in literally on a Thursday to play Sunday like this year. Did Brady Christensen sign? I meant to look that up today.
I do not think so.
So Brady Christensen, he played for Thomas Brown last year in Chicago. Connor McGovern, there's two Connor McGoverns. They're both in the AFC East. It's very confusing. But the one who was on the Jets is still a free agent. He played for Todd Downing. So there's a couple of guys there. If you want some experience, they should draft a center one way or the other, because you sign either of those guys that are a little bit older. If they want somebody to compete right away, I think Jared Wilson's a really strong option from Georgia. Jared Majors from Texas is another good player. If they get one of these older centers, I'm blanking on who you mentioned earlier.
You hit on most of them. The connections. Andre James was the other one who played with.
No, who was the one from the Vikings you mentioned? I'm blanking.
Garrett Bradbury.
Yeah, so like if you sign Garrett Bradbury as a bridge, like I do really like Seth McLaughlin. The problem is he's coming off torn Achilles. He's not going to play this year. So he's got to get in the 5th round. He's not like Josh Simmons where you have to take him so high. I'd be out on that. But if you can get a bridge and you draft Seth McLaughlin, that's another way maybe you can do it. I wouldn't hate if they draft a starting center, though. If they just kind of look at what's out there in the free agency market and draft a starting center. But if I had to pick, I'd probably go McGovern. I don't think Brady Christensen's a bad option either, but I kind of want him to go to the draft.
He re-signed in Carolina. I just looked that up.
Oh, he did? Okay, so McGovern would be one that's potentially out there, but I wouldn't hate them going to the draft.
So you're off Cole Strange here?
I'm not off. I thought, and it was a really limited sample size, so maybe this isn't fair. I thought Ben Brown was better center than Cole Strange last year. I feel like bring Cole Strange to camp, let him compete, all of that, great. And maybe he ends up being the backup. From what I saw last year, if it's going to be one of the internal guys, I think it's going to be Ben Brown. I'd put them both in the competition. There's nothing wrong with letting Cole Strange compete for the job. I just think Ben Brown might have a better chance at winning it between the two of them.
I wonder where they even view Cole Strange. We haven't really got a chance to figure that out, like where this coaching staff pegs him as a guard center. I'm guessing with Josh, if they want to run more of that downhill stuff, he'd be better at center, compared to one of those bigger bodies at guard. But we'll see. Someone that said, is Jake Andrews a bust? He's never in the conversation. He's played 2 games over 2 years. So it really was 1.5 games. He played, I was just looking this up. He played 13 snaps his rookie year, week 17, and then got a start in week 18, and then missed all last year with an injury. So it's tough to rely on.
And he's coming off a very, very significant injury. I don't remember exactly what it was, but
I think it was meniscus. I want to say. So he's just a giant question mark. It's tough to rely on him.
Again, I think Cole Strange is a more realistic option, but I'd put him in that. He's on the roster. Let him come compete, but I would hardly bank on him for anything. Like if he works out, that's you should have other plans in place. You shouldn't be plan A or plan B.
Yep. But they should add. I feel like they should definitely add at this position because you have Mike Onwenu and Morgan Moses on the right side. The left side, center over from the left, is just a big question mark right now. So I would add.
That meme with the drawing of the horse where the back is like really intricate and well done.
Our tail looks good, but the front part of the horse is just yuck right now.
Yeah.
So definitely add at least, if you want to add a veteran guard, make yourself feel a little bit better there, then you can focus on the center position in the draft. Or you have all these young guys, like you hope one of them, whether it's Ben Brown, Cole Strange, City So, even like Jake Andrews, you hope one of them can start at either center or left guard. But if you get a veteran to make yourself feel a little bit more comfortable at the other spot, and then we'll see what happens with left tackle. Maybe it's Cam Robinson. I would still expect them to draft someone, in the first 2 days there, get some youth and upside into that room. But if they could get one veteran kind of at left guard or center there, that would make me feel a little bit more comfortable about that offensive line moving forward, I feel.
Yeah.
But so that's David Andrews. Again, awesome Patriot, awesome pro, awesome person. Tough to see him go, but that is part of the business. They also lost 2 other Super Bowl champions, another former captain and another leader, Jonathan Jones and Dietrich Wise, both going to the Commanders. So both going down to Washington to join a contender. Not as big of losses, I would say, on the field. I thought both of those guys were getting close to the end. Not much from Dietrich Wise last year. Jonathan Jones, I thought maybe if you wanted to put him back in the slot or the nickel, he could still give you some valuable ball there, but you saw him, kind of dwindling, on the outside as a corner. But definitely, 2 locker room guys that are going to be missed. But from a football perspective, I probably felt like it was time to move on from those guys, and that they could probably, you saw them upgrade with Carlton Davis. You hope you get better there. Wise is like Harold Landry comparison. So I think they definitely upgraded, but you did lose 2 leaders in those spots.
Yeah, they did, and the writing was kind of on the wall. I think when those guys didn't re-sign last year, when everybody was getting those extensions, uh, great pickups for Washington, obviously, and they're getting a tremendous amount of leadership there. But just kind of hammers home that this is really a new era for the Patriots.
Definitely, but 2 other great Patriots careers as well. John Jones going from UDFA to being such a big part of those defenses, locking up Tyreek Hill in AFC Championship games, and Wise, mid-round pick, becoming a pretty good part of that defensive line rotation for a Super Bowl win in the last few years. Really good careers there. So 3 guys out that were big pieces of that locker room, but as we'll get into these guys today, they replaced them with a lot of culture guys as they start this new wave kind of under Mike Vrabel. So anything else we miss or that you wanted to add with some of those departures, those signings, Jalen Hawkins as well in that group? Anything else from that free agency shuffle the last few days?
No, I mean, again, just they lost a lot of leadership, and we'll get into kind of what we heard from these players today. I don't think they're necessarily in bad hands, but it's going to be a seismic shift in that room. Obviously, losing, Bill Belichick leaves last year, and the tone changes, but the tone changed, but I don't know if the culture ever really changed. I think it was, I hate to use this phrase, for lack of a better term, maybe like a watered down version of what they had under Belichick.
Yeah, because it was all the same players.
Right. Let me put it this way. Anybody who was worried, and I don't know if this was something necessarily to realistically be worried about, but anybody who was worried that Mike Vrabel was another Belichick guy, remember that conversation and like, oh, they're just trying to replicate Belichick again, another former Patriots linebacker. No, like it's becoming very clear. It's Mike Vrabel's program. There's there's fingerprints here and there of the Belichick influence, obviously, but they're not like Mayo was supposed to be a passing of the torch. Obviously, that didn't work out. But that's supposed to be a passing of the torch and kind of keeping things the way they were, just like sort of, again, for lack of a better term, trying to modernize what they had already been doing. This is a cultural program reset and, moving on from guys like David Andrews, like Jonathan Jones, like Dietrich Wise, I think strongly symbolize that.
Yeah. These guys would probably be back if Bill was still coach here, right? Like he would really value the leadership, them knowing just what to do on the field, right? Like even though their athletic abilities are maybe dwindling a little bit and they're always battling injuries, like they're going to be in the right spots. They know the defense. Like he really values that. Where now you have Vrabel being like, all right, let's get some new guys in here. Let's get some younger. Let's get some athletes in here and start to build this thing back up his way. So I do want to talk about the guys who we heard from today for the new signings and what they're going to bring to the locker room. But very quickly, before we do that, I also want to tell you guys about Prize Picks, where you just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. And we know football season is over, but the sports roll on. We got March Madness starting next week. Conference championship games are going on as we speak. The basketball world, the Celtics, tough loss to the Thunder last night, but they'll be back soon. You can put Jaylen Brown in your lineup if you're looking for a bounce back game, more points on him. Or the Bruins are suddenly the hottest team in the NHL post deadline. They're back in about a half hour, taking on the Ottawa Senators. Linus Ullmark, Jeremy Swayman going at it. More or less on either of their save totals, and put all those guys in your lineup for a chance to win. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Again, all over on Prize Picks. Run your game. All right. So we were down at Gillette today. We heard from Milton Williams, Morgan Moses, Robert Spillane, and Carlton Davis, 4 of the new signings. Vrabel, Elliott Wolf, Robert Kraft spoke as well. But we were just talking about the leadership. Like that was really the takeaway. Like we talk about they're bringing in guys who they're familiar with, guys who are going to establish this new culture, right? Like Morgan Moses he was getting Taylor fired up behind me. Like I could hear Taylor getting ready to go.
I mean, that was really impressive.
Robert Spillane looked like he was ready to just throw the pads on right now and go down there and hit someone. But, hearing them talk about, just building the brotherhood, and it doesn't take much to win games. You just need guys who are going to be on the same page and that enjoy being around each other. Like you see the vision with these guys and really overhauling the culture and bringing this into this locker room, how Vrabel kind of wants to build this thing out. So yeah, you just said it was very impressive, especially Morgan Moses. Like it was encouraging hearing from those guys and walking out of there today.
Yeah, the day one guys, these were the cornerstone guys. These are the guys that they're going to build this program around. And you absolutely heard it. And there's going to be a lot more accountability. It sounds like there's going to be a lot more emphasis on, the team approach to everything. Morgan Moses talked about, we're going to get to know each other on the field, off the field, things like that. You can definitely tell that they were going for a certain type of person when they made these signings.
Yep. Anything stand out, like specifically individually with any of those guys? Moses was obviously very impressive. Nice to hear him talk about, he's going to be the leader in that room.
Yeah.
And right, like he's 34 years old. You figure he's going to take on that responsibility, but it seems like he wants that responsibility. And that's big especially with David Andrews leaving now, because you have a lot of young guys in that room. Feels like he wants to lead, get to know those guys. He talked about all 5 guys playing together, right? Being on the same page, which is something, we used to hear from Scar all the time there. So I thought he was probably the most impressive, maybe a captain in year 1 right out of the gate. So that he was really encouraging, and feels like he's going to fit in really well with that room. And, the guys like Caden Wallace just lead them. If you draft a left tackle high up, glad to have him in that room. But anything specific from any of these guys stand out to you?
I would say, I think that the big football news within that is like, and it shouldn't come as a surprise, but they're going to ask a lot more of Milton Williams than what he was doing in Philly. And that's going to be one of the big questions going into the season. This is a guy that, career high last year, 501 snaps, 48%. You tell me if I'm reaching here, Brian, but like, can we project him, assuming that they do things similarly defensively that they did in Tennessee? Can we project him into that Jeffrey Simmons role? Because
I looked at that the other day. Simmons was averaging like 85, 86%.
He played between his rookie year, he's 49%. Every year after that under Vrabel, he was between 80 and 85.
Yeah.
I don't know that they get Milton Williams right up to 85, but like 75 to 80. Is that what we should be expecting for Milton Williams? Because that's a significant increase. We're talking about maybe coming close to doubling his snaps. So how's he going to hold up with that? How's he going to be against the run? Because that basically is just more run responsibilities. He was basically a full-time pass player in Philly. That's going to be one of the big questions going into the season, and there's going to be pressure there. So that to me was the big takeaway. Like they're building this thing around Milton Williams in large part, and hopefully it's him and Christian Barmore, because that will take some off his plate. Yeah. If Barmore is not out there, he's going to be a focal point in opposing blocking schemes and things like that. He's not next to Jalen Carter anymore. He's going to have a lot more attention than he did in Philly.
I liked his attitude about it, right? And that's probably
he had good answers about it.
That's
for sure.
That's the easy part about the equation, because you see how the play looks when he's playing that amount of snaps. But he said, bring it on, and I thrive on people telling me I can't do things. So he's hearing all of us saying, or we're not saying it, but we're talking about it, and he's hearing other people probably say he's only played 40% of snaps, and he was only good because he had Jalen Carter next to him. So he's heard that stuff, and he's ready to go out there and prove it, right? Like Phil Perry asked him, how are you still going to play to this level when you're playing more snaps? And he's like, I'm just going to work, and I'm just going to keep working to get there. So you like the mentality, you like the attitude about it, but it's one of those things you have to see how it looks when he gets out on the field.
Yeah, and it's going to be one of, again, I think one of the talking points early in the season. I would say a couple other like football points. Mike Vrabel talking about cat coverage when it comes to Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis. You got that cat. Let's go to work. So I think there was, there some people thought maybe they'd be more of a zone heavy team based off what they did in Tennessee. It doesn't sound like it to me. And Carlton Davis has been one of the best man corners in football the last few years. We know what Christian Gonzalez does in man. I don't think you sign Davis if you plan on transitioning to zone, right? I think they may have gone more after a guy like Javarius Ward, had that been the case. So I think we're going to see them play a lot of man defense. That was a football takeaway. And then Vrabel being asked if they feel like they're going to get locked into taking tackle in the draft. He didn't exactly say no. He definitely didn't say yes, but he didn't exactly say no. Or at least that's how I interpreted his answer, which was basically there's a lot of time left.
Yeah. He said, I was pulling up the quotes.
Yeah.
He said, we're going to continue to support the needs that we feel like are on the team. We will target the offensive line. There's still quite a bit of time before we get to the draft, but there's also, we don't want to be careless. That's been a big thing with them. Elliott's mentioned that. Vrabel's mentioned it. We want to be aggressive, but we don't want to be reckless with our spending and just throwing, big contracts out there to guys who might not deserve it, which, if we're talking Cam Robinson, we're talking Cooper Kupp, like doesn't feel like they're just going to get those guys here by paying them, right? Like they want to be, they want to be careful with their spending and how they're doing this. Very intentional was the words Vrabel used to do that. So, I mean, that's still the big question, the left tackle and the wide receiver moving forward. He was specifically asked about supporting Drake May during all that. So those are the big two things that they still got to check here moving forward.
Yeah. And I mean, if Vrabel's right, there's still a lot of time, but at the same time, there's time left. Are there the players left? That's the bigger question. And I don't know, the more we go on, you tell me, Brian, but I feel like the more we go on, the longer we go on, the more likely it is that they're just out on Cam Robinson.
Unless he's like a 1-year deal with the incentives. That's kind of what it sounds like, right? Because there's
right. Well, but it sounds like he won't take that deal. Maybe if that's all that's out there, that's how they get him.
If it just gets to a point where there's zero market for him, and that's the best deal that he has. Because if he had anything with guaranteed money, significant guaranteed money, or multiple years, you would imagine he would have taken that by now. So maybe it is just a 1-year deal with incentives that ultimately he has to land on, and he has to take kind of approve it to bounce back and see if he can get it. I would still be down for that. I know it didn't go well in Minnesota down the stretch, but if you bring him back, get him with Doug Marrone, see if he can get back to that level of play he had in Jacksonville. Like it's an upgrade over Verdarian Lowe, I would say. And it still wouldn't stop me from drafting a guy in the first 2 days, but I would still probably be on for Cam Robinson, especially if it's that 1-year incentive laden deal that it sounds like they're trying to get done right now.
Yeah, and I mean they still need to draft somebody, but I'm with you. Like if you can get him on that, great. And I do think some of the issues in Minnesota, like he was playing fine last year in Jacksonville. Switching teams mid-season, learning a new offense, that's got to be tough. I don't think he's like totally cooked, but I'm with you. He's a 1-year bridge.
Yep. Where are you at with Cooper Kupp now that he's officially released? I think it was Jeff Howe who had it about an hour ago. Says he's looking at, or one team would offer him about $12 million per. Doesn't seem like the Patriots are there yet. Karen Garegian had that, going back to they want to be intentional with their spending. They're not at that $12 million per. Would you give that to Cooper Kupp and, maybe overpay a little bit to get him here in New England?
I don't know. Like I go back and forth on it again with the age. Like he's not the player he once was. I think there's still value. I'm not, if it's a 1-year deal, I'd give him whatever. I'm kind of at that point where like, if it's 12, 13, 14 million a year, he's probably worth it. If you're going to have like real money into like a second or third year, that might be money you're going to have to end up eating. And if you're taking a risk at that point, I don't know. At what point does Stephon Diggs enter this conversation? That's what I would say, right?
I like Stephon Diggs.
Who is coming off torn ACL. And I admit I have been very skittish about them adding wide receivers coming off injuries. And I still am. But DK Metcalf's not out there anymore. Chris Godwin's not out there anymore. We don't think T. Higgins is out there anymore. I talked to Mike Reese the other day on the Patriots Hub podcast on 98.5 The Sports Hub, and I liked the phrase he used. I'd leave the light on for T. Higgins, right? Because you don't know. I think there was a report today that he's like really unhappy with the way things are right now with the tag.
Don't blame him.
Neither do I. But like, all right, there's a 33-year-old receiver who's gotten worse, like noticeably worse each of the last 3 years. So there's probably more decline coming. Or a 31-year-old receiver, which still isn't young, and he just tore his ACL. But like, I think people are underestimating maybe how good Diggs would be for the room. I know people point to his departure from Buffalo and kind of label him as a locker room cancer.
He was a captain last year in Houston.
Right. He got named a captain his first year in Houston. Everybody raved about him
down there. Yeah.
I think we maybe need to relook at his departure from Buffalo, and maybe everybody's golden boy isn't so golden in that scenario. But, you know, a guy that might be good for the room. Now, the tricky thing is, okay, he might not be ready till October, and he's not going to get to work with Drake May in the spring and the summer, all of that. So there is that with it. But, you know, if they want to add somebody, I don't know that I'm trying to outbid 10 teams for Cooper Kupp and end up with him on a 3-year deal. All right, you know, you can get Stephon Diggs on a 1-year prove-it deal and maybe see what happens there. Because let's say it works out either way, and I know we're being very optimistic here. Both signings work out as well as realistically possible. Who's the better player?
Diggs. Diggs definitely has more left in the tank than, well, you know, we'll see post-injury, but
again, we're living in this.
It's also
optimistic world that won't happen, but
who hasn't been the most healthy individual the last 3 years, right? Cooper Kupp, like he's always has these nagging hamstring injuries and things going on. But based off their play last year when they were healthy, like Stephon Diggs still has a lot more left in the tank, I would say. I just trying to pull up his stats: 47 catches, almost 500 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And
he was great last year before he got hurt.
So, you know, he wasn't the number one. They had Nico Collins going, but, you know, he's going to be an upgrade over anything you guys have here in New England. Like, I think Diggs has more football left in him. It's just he's going to be on that Kendrick Bourne arc. So where he comes back in October, then maybe he's not full speed till November. So he's not on the field all off season, right? Like we're going OTAs, we're going training camp most likely, and he's not going to be on the field catching passes from Drake May. You're going to get him in the room. He's going to still be able to be there and help these young guys with the film side of things and more of that, but you're not going to get him on the field, where you're hoping Cooper Kupp will stay healthy enough where you're going to have him throughout the summer. You're going to have him week 1, and he's going to be actually on the field. He would be an upgrade too, but he was not what he once was. But
no, I was going to say, look, I don't think Cooper Kupp makes or breaks their offseason. He'd be a nice addition. If they get him, great. It's not suddenly, you know, they're a 10-win team because they added Cooper Kupp. And on the converse, like they need somebody at wide receiver. That's clear. But if they miss on Cooper Kupp, I'm not losing sleep over it. Like, okay, you know, go get Diggs, get more aggressive in the draft, whatever. Like it's
keep the light on for T. Higgins.
Yeah. Which I don't know. Should we be considering that more? I feel like this is a freaking roller coaster. Like every few weeks,
I think
he's not available. Okay, maybe he will be available. Okay, he's not. Oh, but maybe he will be. But he's not. But maybe he will be. Like, are we going back up the track now?
I think anything could be on the table in Cincinnati. They are a dumpster fire right now. It looks
they really do look like this is not a good look for that organization now.
The whole like we're gonna first of all saying we're gonna pay Jamar Chase the highest non-quarterback in the league, only then to watch that value skyrocket by like another $6 or $7 million when Myles Garrett gets his deal. Just horrible in the work in the press by their general manager there. So
I was there when he said it. It was at the combine. I'm like,
yeah, there
were no Patriots talking. No, it was like well in between or like well after Wolf, a few or Vrabel or whoever it was that day. So I'll go hear Duke Tobin talk. And he said that, and he was just meeting a bunch of Bengals writers. And I'm looking around at them like,
does anyone else?
You guys aren't going to follow up on that? Like that was, I don't know. You know, imagine if Elliot Wolf said that about somebody. You know, obviously the Boston market is the Boston market, but I was like, oh, is that like a guarantee? Like I don't hear this guy often. Holy crap! I still can't believe you said that.
Yeah. So then Trey Hendrickson, who knows? It feels like they don't want to pay any of these guys, but they want like a first round pick plus if they want to trade any of these guys. So
Well,
they're gonna
look,
have
you
to
can want what
give.
you want. You might
Yeah,
as well ask for it. Your
they're
price
gonna
can
have to
always come
give
down.
somewhere somehow. So
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe Jamar Chase will shake loose, and then they can just deal the number 4 pick for Jamar Chase. I'd be in for that one. So yeah, leave the light on for T. Higgins. Someone asked about Brandon Ayuk. Is he kind of in the same boat? I'm still, if we're leaving the light on, I'm leaving
I
the light
think the
on
light's still on there.
Brandon Ayuk. Commander Ray says, or not because he didn't want to be there. That's another thing. Like maybe he feels different now about coming to New England with Mike Vrabel, with Drake May. He sees all these defensive additions and free agency they just made. He's got the contract. So I would still be in Ayuk. That's still, though, it's a little different than Stephon Diggs. He's got the torn ACL, but this is a guy who's 26, 27 years old that you project is still going to be here like for 3-4 years. It's not just a 1-year prove it deal. So I'm in on Ayuk even with the injury, but leave the light on for all those wide receivers.
Yeah.
We had a excuse me, we had a super chat too I wanted to bring up here. Cam's got our full offseason plan here. Brandon Scherf, Brunskill, who was the Titans center, I believe he played 23 under Vrabel. Humphreys, would that be DJ Humphreys, the tackle? And then
I guess.
Cooper Kupp,
Better
and
not be
then
Adam Humphreys.
focus on the draft and build. So 3 veteran offensive linemen and Cooper Kupp, focus on the draft and build. How do you feel about Cam's plan there?
I thought, did Scherf not sign? I thought he signed. No, I guess not. Oh, I'm thinking of who's the Lions guard?
Zeitler.
Zeitler, yeah. So Brandon Scherf would not. Let me pull that back up so I can see. Scherf would not be a bad addition. Brunskill works. Humphreys, I don't know. He didn't want to come here last year when they were reportedly looking for a tackle. He's a little bit older. He's still coming off that. I think it was a knee injury, right? Clearly wasn't good enough in Kansas City to the point where they stuck Joe Tooney out there at tackle. So you wonder where he's at. And
didn't he get re-hurt too?
He might have.
In Kansas City?
Let me see. It's not a bad bunch, but like I don't think DJ Humphreys is any sort of definitive answer at tackle.
No, definitely not.
Like
at least not to the extent
still having the conversation about, do you trust Will Campbell that high? Do you trade down and take Kelvin Banks or trade up or take Ariante Ursary? Like if they were to add DJ Humphreys, that wouldn't change anything to me about how they should approach the tackle position.
Yeah, it's not to the extent of like a Cam. Like Cam Robinson again isn't you're not solving the position long term, but you probably feel a little bit better about Cam Robinson than a DJ Humphreys there.
Yeah.
But Scherf is interesting. He's still, he's 33 years old, but he's still held up in pass protection. He's never played left guard though, so I don't know how he would feel about maybe switching sides and if they would be concerned about that. But Brunskill is a good name to know just because he played center under Vrabel.
Yeah.
And then Kupp we've obviously talked about. But the big thing here with Cam...
Humphreys did get hurt last year with the Chiefs.
Okay.
So my bad.
Big thing here, and I know it's fun to bring in all these free agents today and, listen to them talk and get excited. But big thing here, and Cam ends, focus on the draft and build. This thing is still built through the draft, big picture, long term. So they still got to hit on the draft. Don't lose track of the draft there. So, anything else here? You got anything else from today or in free agency in general?
I think that's it.
Any other next moves you'd like to see them make? What positions of need besides receiver and left tackle? They just got. I was going to say
interior line stuff. Still free safety. I still want to see them out of free safety. Jalen Hawkins is not the answer there to me.
So I wonder if they sign Julian Blackmon. He's out there with the Colts, who their defensive back coach last year, Justin Hamilton, is now the Patriots cornerbacks coach. So there's a relation there with Justin Blackmon. He's more of a free safety. I would like him. I was gonna say one of those more speed rushers, but then they just signed Chaisson before right.
What
when we got
about
on.
Marcus Williams on the safety front?
He just got cut by Baltimore, right?
Yeah, he had a bad year last
Yeah.
year, but that's a guy you kind of buy low on. And I don't know that I'd give him a big contract, but he's only 28 years old. Maybe a change of scenery helps him out.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Buy low
Like
candidate.
he's as good as I'd rather him than just Jalen Hawkins and nobody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be opposed just getting somebody who might be an answer back there. And so you're not forced to play one of your box safeties back there.
Yeah. Because Hawkins, he's probably best special teams, just mostly on special teams, and he can chip in if there are some injuries. But yeah, getting one of those guys would be better. So, last thing, we got one more super chat here from Elliot. Thank you, Elliot. You think they threw a few darts? I'm guessing throw. You think they throw a few darts at wide receivers in the draft? I don't know if they'll throw a few darts because they have a lot of just bodies at the wide receiver position right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, are young and, feel how you want about those guys, but maybe just one dart at the wide. I would expect them to draft a wide receiver, but I don't know if they're going to, do the double dip again like they did last year with Javon Baker and Jalen Polk.
Especially if they add if they did add Cooper Kupp, right? Like you got to start crunching the numbers. So Douglas and Mac Hollins are making the team. And I'm not saying those are their two best wide receivers. Those two are making the team. Jalen Polk is probably back for better or worse second round pick. Usually those guys don't just get cut. Chaisson Bootie's probably back. This is a rotational guy. And then if you add a Cooper Kupp, now you're at 5. Draft pick is 6. So maybe I should take Booty off, right? It's Douglas. It's Hawkins. It's
Polk. Probably.
Sorry?
Polk.
Like you're running out of Polk. Yeah, Douglas, Hawkins, Polk. Now, if you're going to add Cooper Kupp, that's 4. Draft pick is 5. Like you're running that up now. So you can't add that many guys like, well, we're going to stick them in the back of the depth chart and develop them because they're really everybody's back of the depth chart. You don't have a ton of room to bury guys. So they can't do this. All right, we're going to sign a couple of receivers and draft a couple of receivers. You can't do that again. They keep just adding these mid-tier free agent wide receivers, mid-tier draft prospects, and it gives the illusion that the room is competitive because they're all competing with each other because they're all similar caliber players, but there's no actual ceiling there against other opponents. They either need to add a guy, like Kupp's different because he gives you the veteran element of it all, or Diggs, but like, I don't want to see them take 2 receivers like 70 and 104 again, 70 and 69 and 135. That doesn't do anything. It either needs to be a guy that's going to be at the top of the depth chart or like a veteran. You can't, you have your mid-tier receiver prospects. You have plenty. Chaisson, and I know that this front office didn't draft him. Well, then you got to be ready to move on from him. You got to be willing to eat Jalen Polk's contract, move on from Javon Baker, move on from Chaisson Booty, and like
Kendrick
really
Bourne.
reset it.
You haven't even mentioned Kendrick Bourne
Yeah.
in this whole equation. So yeah,
I still think Kendrick Bourne's going to make the team because he was so good under McDaniels last time he was here. But that's another guy that like, do you just want to add more players to that mix and like replace one of your wide receiver 3s with another wide receiver 3? Or do you actually want to try to find a guy at the top of the depth chart? Dart throws, yeah, maybe you hit on a Puka Nacua. You're probably not going to do that. Either get an elite prospect, which is Ted McMillan, Matthew Golden, Travis Hunter if he's there, or just let it go and work with the players you have.
Yep. A lot of bodies. I do wonder if they make a trade. Like, we had the Ayuk trade last year where Kendrick Bourne was supposedly in it. I do wonder if they make a trade if one of these guys is a part of it. Like maybe Chaisson Booty or Kendrick Bourne's throw into a T. Higgins or a Brandon Ayuk trade if they revisit that. San Fran has
it makes sense
with Bourne. Yeah, it does. You have a lot of these gun guys. Maybe another team kind of wants one of those reclamation projects with a Javon Baker or something like that. So maybe one of them are included in the trade. But yeah, you have so many bodies there. You can't just use 2 picks probably at the position unless you're moving off a bunch of guys. But definitely taking one high up there first, second round is probably in the equation unless they add a big name here before the draft. But
Yeah.
all right, we will wrap it up there. So enjoy whatever free agent signing they probably make in the next 15 minutes once we log off here. But we will be back next week. I believe we're going to do a crossover with Mike and Taylor early in the week to kind of recap the whole first week of free agency. And then mock drafts are back later in the week, mock draft 2.0. Now that we have, a little bit more to this roster and a little bit more to go off of, mock draft 2.0 next week. So fun week ahead. So make sure you are locked on to the channel, turn on your notifications, subscribe, like and comment. We also have the tier system. If you are not a member, make sure you join the tier system. In the meantime, you can also follow Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com for his Patriots free agency coverage. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines, and head over to patspulpit.com for our coverage online there. So thanks everyone for tuning in with us tonight. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy St. Patty's Day weekend. See everyone at the parade. Barth, will you be there?
Not at the parade. I will be elsewhere. I will be
and
celebrating.
Out and about. Come find us.
I'm a little too old for the parade at this point.
Come find us.
That, but...
Talk some ball over a Guinness on St. Patty's Day weekend in Boston. So everyone have a great weekend. And again, thanks for joining us tonight.
Bye.